So, ladies and gentlemen, this interview is brought to you by employeeescapeplan.com. And if you are looking to have more customers pay you more money more often because of your marketing and sales systems, if you want to put that foundation in place with principles, time-tested, proven principles, and you want to work with Mr. Joe Nicasio, who has coached Les Brown on his marketing and sales systems, I highly recommend employeeescapeplan.com. He's an amazing advisor to burn it up coaching and becoming your greatest possible self. And you can find his link in the description, show notes, all that good stuff. And you can also go to www.employeeescapeplan.com. I highly recommend Joe Nicasio. Shannon Confair helps creatives and online business owners learn how to establish and get clear on their unforgettable brand through her signature process and brand photo shoots. At the very beginning of her business, she had to overcome obstacles and negative voices in her head to find peace and success in life. And now she is on a mission to help as many people as possible to do the same thing through creative strategy and photography. Her work is the turning point in your life where you will go from where you are to where you want to be. When she isn't working with her rockstar clients, you will find her being a mom to 3 amazing kiddos, planning her next photo shoot destination, dreaming of Cali, and enjoying life with family and close friends. Shannon, you ready to rock this?
I am. Let's go.
She's ready. All right, you are now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Thank you so much for coming today to teach our audience how to build an unforgettable brand.
Yes, one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yes, good. Then you're definitely in the right profession.
Right.
Awesome. So how we start every interview off is diving into the question of the day. And today the theme is the gifts of life and death. So Shannon, how have you really grasped that or adapted to that, or recognized how beautiful life is, how empowering it is, and also the gift of death? How have you seen that merge? How have you seen that show up in your life?
Well, man, that's deep. So I guess it would have to be with my own almost near-death experience. So let's just go right into it.
Let's go.
A couple years ago, I started having some heart problems, kind of out of nowhere. Literally woke up in the middle of the night one night and felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest. I was shaking uncontrollably. It was pretty awful. We had to call 911, and I remember, like, at that time I was homeschooling my kids. I had homeschooled for 5 years, and I remember being wheeled out of my living room and thinking like I was saying my last words. Like I really thought I was going to die on the way to the hospital because they couldn't tell me what was wrong. And it was like, make sure the kids are homeschooled, make sure my family knows I love them. Like those were like it for me. And I didn't die. Ended up having this weird disorder. Everything's okay. But after that first episode, there were several more times where I had to call 911, had to go by ambulance to the hospital. And I would just remember this one time in the ambulance, just finally having this peace just completely wash over me and being okay with, like, if this is it, like, this is it, and I'm okay with that. And just like really, and I'm a believer, so like really putting my life into God's hands, and like, there's nothing I can do about this. But coming out on the other side of that, it really does give you a new perspective. I'm so grateful I did experience that, because you just realize how precious life is, how fleeting it is, how much stuff just doesn't freaking matter. And it's funny because we forget that pretty quick. I forgot it really quick after that happened, and just have to go back to that moment and really relive those feelings, as painful as they were and as scary as they were, to keep that perspective in my life.
So powerful. And I love that you said you have to go back to it. You have to like tap back into that power, because we can get so desensitized to life and the miracle that life is. If we think that we have all the time in the world, it's like, oh, just life goes on and you just get into this usual rhythm of things. But if you take yourself back to, man, what was life like? What was the new reality I stepped into after I left that hospital? It's like, oh my God, I get to smell fresh air again. I get to see my kids again. I get to be alive again. Just overwhelming, pouring, oozing out the gratitude and love of life. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's beautiful. My gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Awesome. So we just went straight in. I love this topic, man. We're going to have some great shares on the interview today. I love it. I love it. Cool. So tell us more about what you're doing today, Shannon, in helping people build unforgettable brands.
Well, so I work with, of course, the most amazing clients. They're leaders. They're, they're like the people that are going to change the world, but they don't always know it when they come to me. And so I get to walk them through this process of transformation. And it always starts with getting really clear on what I call the 3 C's, which is personal clarity, client clarity, and business clarity. So they're business owners, they're professionals who's, act in an entrepreneurial way, whether they're, I've worked with realtors, for example, lawyers, people like that too. And, step 1 is getting their personal clarity. And so that looks like, it's creating the vision. What do you want your life to look like? I go a lot deeper than just their business, because when you're creating a personal brand, it's personal. And we want everything to fit together into your vision. And so we figure out, what is that story? What is the story of your past? And how does that impact who you are today? What is your vision for your future? How does your business fit into that vision? How do other people see you, and how do you see yourself, and how do you want to be perceived to the world? So it's kind of getting super clear on that. That's step 1.
Cool. Got it. So it's the clarity on, you said business, personal, and what was the third one?
Client. So personal clarity is number 1.
Okay.
Number 2 is client clarity. Okay. So that's getting, really clear on who you best serve. It doesn't mean you're not going to serve other people, but there are people out there that need you more than others. And so like we focus in on who they are, how to reach them, what they need from you. And then the third part of that is the business clarity. And that's just getting, clear again on what are your brand values? Like, what is your experience like when people are working with you? If you're a service provider, what are your services, and, just structuring those for them. And then how do we convey like all of this messaging to the world? Like, what does that look like?
Awesome. I love it. Great overview. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're enjoying this, make sure you give a thumbs up. Shannon is dropping the fire already, giving us some structure on how to create that clarity in our life. And if you're enjoying this, share it so that more people can have access to it and hear about what Shannon's got going on, and you can be the channel of abundance and clarity as well. So Shannon, let's dive in a little bit more to your journey of how you got to this place of understanding these 3 points and delivering it with your clients. What was that like? And I mean, you mentioned like one of the biggest events in your life already, but how did you get to this place of coaching, consulting, branding, photo shoots, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I've been a photographer for about 12 years now.
Wow.
And when I started my business, I started it in my small hometown, and it grew pretty organically, very quickly. I really didn't have to do outreach. And, I would tag people on Facebook in their photos, and I would just book more shoots. And so it was really nice. And then I moved, and this was like 7.5 years ago when I moved. And it was to a bigger area. I thought, more money, more people, business is going to like explode. I can raise my prices, and it's just going to be amazing. And of course that didn't happen. Like my business kind of fell flat. I was driving back to my hometown a lot to do photo shoots and to shoot weddings and stuff. And had to figure out how do I fix this? Because I can't keep driving, there all the time to do shoots and to book work. And I really wanted to get established where I lived now. And so at that time, I really wanted to start focusing in on weddings. And I thought that that was niching myself down. I'm a wedding photographer. I don't do portraits anymore. I'm just going to do weddings. But still, I wasn't booking as much as I wanted to. And so then I found this woman online. She was a coach, and she had this online course that was, about booking more brides. And I remember hesitating to buy it. I'm like, I can't spend that much money on this online course. It was $250.
Oh man.
Perspective, right? And that was before that was really before the online coaching world even existed to where it is now. And so I'm like, I'm going to trust this person who I don't know, to give me advice, to take my money. Again, it was new to me. But she and I ended up connecting. I ended up working with her, and it totally transformed my business, because that's where I really learned about what really niching down was. It wasn't just picking weddings. It's like, what kind of weddings do I want to shoot? What kind of brides do I want to work with? You know, creating that picture of that perfect ideal bride for me. And then, you know, building out my personal brand around that. And once I got really clear on all of that and I started implementing what I learned, I doubled my business that year.
Wow.
And I didn't even realize I did until I was doing taxes with my accountant. And she's like, what did you do? Like, this is amazing. And I'm like, I have no idea. Because I don't pay attention to numbers, right? I just love taking pictures and helping people. Right. And so it was pretty incredible. And I found myself, like, I was doing more networking then and just connecting with a lot of, in particular, women business owners at the time. And I was naturally just helping them do the same thing that I had already done, and just helping them with business. And so I did that for a while, and started to get burned out on shooting weddings, and decided to take a break. Like, it was crazy. It was at the height of my career. I was in the venues I wanted to shoot with, working with my dream brides, and I loved it. But it was time to take a break from that. And I was feeling called to do something deeper, and, you know, more transformational in people's lives. So I spent this time like exploring. You know, I did life coaching school. I started a brand called Wildly Successful Moms. I wanted to help moms in business, like, learn how to juggle their roles as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, and like succeed in all three. Never really monetized that though. Just, you know, kind of built the brand, built the following, but it still wasn't right. And by that time, like, I'd started missing photography. Like, I really wanted to be back behind the camera because that's just an extension of who I am. And so that's when I decided to, you know, pursue brand photography. And I got to take the best of both worlds, like the best of the coaching that I love to do and like helping people build the nuts and bolts of their business, and then translating that into like a really creative photo shoot that, you know, is different for every person. I get to design sets. I get to pick different locations and wardrobes, and it's a ton of fun and creativity for me.
Wow. That's awesome. I love it. You're totally living your purpose. And I love how it kind of came full circle, because you're like, I'm burned out. This isn't really like fulfilling me anymore. And how many of you who are listening are going through phases of life where you can notice these phases of life where you're like super fulfilled, and then things start to get stale, or that newness or the joy starts to run out. And Shannon, you're like, okay, what's next? You know, is it life coaching? Is it creating this group for moms? Like, what is it? What's it going to be? And then you're like, no, I love this photography. I love helping people draw out their story. I was just doing it naturally with these women business owners when you were first starting. So that's so amazing. So like, what was the biggest lesson that you learned on that journey to get to where you are today? Like, what was the biggest takeaway, the piece of wisdom, the, you know, follow your soul's intuition or whatever kind of thing that you discovered along that?
I'm still in that. I don't think that discovery process is ever going to end. It's like, it's changed throughout the years. I think that, you know, at first for me, it was definitely just take action, like get out of your head and just do it. You're never going to be ready. You just have to do it. And I'm a perfectionist at heart. And so that was really hard for me, because it's like I try to figure it all out and then like figure out every worst case scenario that's going to happen when I don't do it right, you know, and then I'm just like, screw it. Like, just do it. Get your feet wet. And then you adjust as you go. And that's like one of the biggest things I instill in my clients. I think the other big thing for me was the clarity piece, because, you know, without a vision, like, you don't know where you're going. Like, you need to have that vision in order to create the roadmap to get there. And that's why I start with that with every single client. Because again, like, you're taking shots in the dark, and you're just going to fumble around. It's going to take longer, and eventually you'll probably figure it out. But if you can get clear on it, and know that can change too, because that was a big hang up for me, and it still can be sometimes. I'm like, well, if I create this vision, what if I don't want that anymore a year from now? It's like, well, you create a new one.
Right, exactly. It's like you see if you're on a boat or something like that, you see a lighthouse in the distance or some point in the distance, and you just get to that point. Like, it may not be your ultimate end destination, but just get to that point, you know, sprint to that point. And a lot of people are taking their time from point to point, just like, you know, I'll go about it. Just like race there, get to that next milestone, and then be like, okay, now what? Now regroup, now see where we can go from here. So I'm curious, like, how did things transition into Unforgettable? How did that become your signature? Why is that so big for you and your brand?
I think that it just speaks to, I think that's a really good question. Nobody's actually ever asked me that. Um, and so like I'm doing some soul searching as I'm answering this.
I love it.
But with my story at the beginning, I think it comes back to that. Like we all want to be unforgettable, whether we
Mm.
realize it or not.
Mm.
And I think that every person has that unique, unforgettable piece about them. And I love drawing that out and showing that and showing them really, like you are unforgettable. A lot of times we look and we think like we want to be this person in the future, right? Like that's who I want to be. You already are that person. Like it's in there. And I get to help people draw that out. And so the whole idea is just to be unforgettable, like for yourself, for your clients. When somebody thinks of brand photographer, for example, like I want to be the first person they think of. I want to be unforgettable in their eyes. I want the experience to be unforgettable. It's not just about the end results. I want you to have a good time while you're doing it. And so I think that answers the question. I think that's where unforgettable comes from.
Awesome. Awesome. So can you start taking us through some of the like vision creation or aspects of being unforgettable and like how we can create that in our own brands? Like what are some of the principles or fundamentals?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, I like to ask people or have people think of is like when you're working with a client, in what ways can you surprise and delight them along the way? And those little high touch, just those little high touches, like they make such an impact on people, whether that is, a handwritten card, a handwritten thank you card, or maybe it's delivering a lollipop with their photo prints, like something just small, that's unexpected and that shows that you really care and you're really thinking about them. I think is a great way to immediately start becoming unforgettable in their eyes. But again, it comes back to that personal clarity of what makes you different from every other person doing what you're doing, because, there's nothing truly original, right? Like we're all doing something that somebody else has done at some point. How do we put our own unique spin on it and infuse ourselves into that process?
Right. So is there a way to notice like what are our genius zones? What is our points of differentiation from the rest of the marketplace?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things I like to have people do is actually to put out a survey, like make it anonymous to their friends, family, past clients, put it on Facebook, make it a Survey Monkey. What 3 words would you use to describe me? And it's really important to see how people see you, because it might not always line up with how you think they see you.
Wow.
And then from there, you get to decide like, okay, is this how I actually want to be seen? And if not, you can figure out what things do I need to change about myself to be seen in the way that I actually want to be seen. But 9 times out of 10, I think that most people get back exactly what they want, even if they don't realize like, oh, I am coming across the way I want to come across. I know that happened for me. And I like to leave it open-ended. I don't put word bank, there's not multiple choice.
Right.
And I had people picking the same words over and over and over for me. And I forget what they were off the top of my head, but I remember that hit me like, oh, wow. Like, so this is really genuinely how I'm appearing to people.
And you know what I immediately thought I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this, is tomorrow I'm going to post on Facebook, like, what are the 3 words that you would use to describe me, to see how am I showing up for my social media audience. So for everyone listening, what are the networks that you can, post that quick question out to? Maybe it's your family, maybe it's using a Survey Monkey, Google form, whatever. And like what networks can you do it really quickly? For me, I have a lot of engagement on my Facebook, so I can just post this question up and see what comes back. It'll be interesting. I'm curious if other people's answers will influence the people who are answering the question, though, because it's like public, versus a survey, which is more private.
That's why I like it to be anonymous. And also I like it to be anonymous because people are going to be more truthful. If they know, like, you don't know they're saying it, they're free to say whatever, like, really, truly comes to mind. So I feel like it's a little more honest.
Yeah, so people might say energy, ego. For me, because I'm like big energy. Not so much the ego though. That's not me. So here's the thing. So everyone listening, you have the opportunity to check in with the people around you to source like how you're already showing up. That point of differentiation, like I asked Shannon, like how do we figure that out? Don't make it so hard on yourself to figure it out and think like, I don't know what it is, like so much pressure. It's super difficult. Just go ask people and see what they're willing to say.
Keep it simple. I mean, the minute, again, like it comes back to taking action. The minute we get stuck in our heads, like trying to figure it out and not actually just doing it, you're stagnant.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. No stagnation, not here. Be in action, right? Get out of your head, be in action. I love it. So we can ask a survey. We can look at that point of differentiation. What about the clarity? Let's dive a little bit more into that. How do we create clarity for ourselves, for our vision? What do we do to draw out that vision?
That's a great question, because a lot of people get stuck on this. And I have found the reason they get stuck on it is out of fear that they'll never have it. It's like, well, I can't admit I really want this thing because I might not ever get this thing. And then that's really disappointing. So a lot of this, I'm so glad I had that life coach training.
Yeah.
I'm not like a mindset master. I would not consider myself an expert in that field at all. I've learned enough to be able to guide people through that resistance. So I just like to, like tell people, like, just close your eyes and like go back to that place. Like, what fills you up? Like, what do you really truly want? Uninhibited, dream big. Like, this is my, $1 million dream. Like, what does that look like truly? And then I have them write it as if it's a journal entry in a day of their ideal life. And so it's like, today I'm so very thankful that I woke up and blah, like whatever that is that you did that day. How did it feel? What did it look like? What was the weather like outside? Where were you? What is your house like? Do you have a partner? Do you have kids? Like, whatever it is, like, get as detailed as humanly possible. And if there's resistance around it, maybe like start a little smaller. Okay. So maybe you don't want to go to your ultimate dream life right away. Just like next week, what does my ideal day look like? And then work your way up from there.
That's good. That's good. Do you find that a lot of people have that resistance of giving themselves permission to like dream and say, this is really what I want?
Absolutely. Yeah. Most people that I've worked with really struggle with that. In fact, I used to use actual workbooks that I would mail to people. Now I just do it online, but like, that's like one of the first questions. And I've actually moved it around because people would like stop because they couldn't answer that one, journal entry.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a universal struggle. And, funny enough, like I have found that every struggle that I face in my business is they're the same struggles that every other business owner faces, whether they are making multiple 6 or 7 figures or whether they're just starting out. Like it's a universal thing.
Wow. What other struggles do you see people making or challenges, difficulty on their way to building an unforgettable brand?
Great question again. A big one is, who am I to do this? It's all around visibility. It's like imposter syndrome. I don't really know what I'm talking about, or I can't really help, these people. And it always comes back to, who am I to like, to have this platform? What are other people going to think? That's a huge one.
How do you find the best way to get people through that and like break them through that onto the other side where they can stand proudly and share what they have to offer? Yeah,
I think that through working together and like getting really clear on their vision and then really clear on their ideal clients, they have a greater purpose behind it. It no longer becomes about them because first of all, what I say to that immediately is, well, who are you not to do it? You have been given this set of gifts and talents that the world needs, that your particular clients need. And if you are not putting yourself out there, you're not able to serve those people. So it's not about you. It's about them. And, it's about like sacrificing your own comfort and being visible and being front and center, whether you like it or not, in order to be a better service to the world. And I had to get over that. Like, I do not like being in front of the camera. It is uncomfortable for me. And ironically, I've gotten much better. Like, I forced myself to do like multiple photo shoots in the last year just to like get over that.
Nice.
And again, it's because like, I still think that, and I just talk myself out of it. I'm like, well, who am I to be, having this photo shoot on the beach in San Diego, which is like my favorite place in the world. And then posting that on Instagram. Like, I feel a little bit silly sometimes still, but I'm like, you know what? If that's how I can speak to somebody who, that resonates with them and they get one thing out of what I post underneath that picture, then it's totally worth it.
Wow. That's so powerful. I love that. And especially this syndrome, imposter syndrome, is so prevalent in influencers and people who have a message. It's like we live this and we have this experience and wisdom, and it's like we know people want it. Yet we're so focused on ourselves. The spotlight is on us, and it's like, oh, but what if they don't like me? What if they, And it's always it can be disguised as well. It's like, oh, well, they probably won't like it anyways. When really it's all about us. It's like we're getting in our own way. So I love that, and I love that sometimes we're just that force that kicks someone's butt and says, listen, you need to stop being such a selfish little, you know what, right? Like, you are robbing the world, robbing these people who are hungry, who are desperate, who would give anything if they knew what they were dealing with, why they were stuck, and they knew that your solution would get them out of it. Right? Yeah. If they knew what was on the other side, and then you like walked in front of them, but you didn't give them the solution, like, wow, that's like you just robbed this person. You just condemned them to go through even more suffering because you didn't get out of your own way, because you didn't extend the offer. And so many people have a challenge with that self-worth of extending the offer and saying, hey, I have something that will make a difference for you, and I'm going to stand for that so that you are able to see it, so that you're able to receive the value.
Absolutely. And I think that, with hearing you say that, like, it takes me back to even that first course that I went through. Like, I'm so thankful that woman was selling that course. Absolutely. So I'm involved in retreats in two capacities. Number one, going as the photographer and being hired to go. And number two, I'm actually co-hosting my first one in 2 weeks in San Diego.
So cool.
And so I'll talk about each one, because I want people to know, like, if you are an online business owner or a locally based business owner, because I am both, it is so important to get out there and surround yourself with like-minded, high vibe people out of your own comfort zone. Like, get out of your house, go to a retreat, like, where you can focus on yourself, you can focus on your business. You have those other people around you to support you and to challenge you. It has been life-changing every time I go, every single time. And I always book new clients, that's not why I do it, but it happens, so I can almost guarantee that will happen for you. And it leaves me with a fresh perspective and a fresh energy to, like, get back home and, like, hit the ground running again. So even when I'm working them, like, I still have that experience. But I'm super excited because my first retreat is actually happening. And, like, full disclosure, I've tried to make them happen before. Like, I tried collaborating with people last year. I'm huge on collaborating. And it didn't work out. Nobody booked. It fell through. Like, whatever happened. And this time I'm working with a friend, Kathleen Ventura, and she is a brilliant, well-established business coach. And she is on the front end of the conscious branding movement. And so conscious branding is, establishing your triple bottom line. It's not just about your profits. It's people, planet, and profits. Ooh, and so think of, like, Tom's shoes, right? They have this platform of buy one, give one. For every pair of shoes you buy, they give a pair to somebody in need. There's Warby Parker, the sunglasses, and there's, a bunch of others. There's personal brands that are using their platform to promote healthy living or, something political or whatever it may be that you're passionate about. It's like, being a personal brand isn't enough anymore. There's so much going on in the world. Like, and again, it comes back to, it's not about us. What can we do with what we've been given to better everybody else? And so that's what this upcoming retreat is all about. We're going to take entrepreneurs through 2.5 days of building their conscious brand strategy with both Kathleen and I. They're going to get their photo shoots, on the beach in San Diego. And we actually decided to serve while we're there. So we're going to participate in an ocean cleanup.
Nice.
And we're going to have, like, an oceanic expert come and talk to us and teach us more. Like, okay, so these are the problems the ocean is facing. This is how you might be able to help with your business, because it might even feel silly to think, like, well, what can I do for the ocean, right? Like, I'm one person, what can I do? But it's a ripple effect, like we were talking about earlier. So you can do a lot. You can do a lot for the ocean. You can do a lot for any cause. And it doesn't have to be complicated, because I know it's super overwhelming to think about, like, ooh, what can I do? How can I serve? Like, how can I infuse this into my brand and into my business model? And so what we wanted to do was to take all of that and make it really freaking easy and accessible for literally anyone to come to and leave after those 2.5 days with their brand strategy, with an implementation plan, and with photos to kind of like help them build that platform and visibility.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you find that while people are at an event, is that a better is there like better energy, or a retreat, an event, retreat, whatever? Is there better energy there than versus if it was just to do like a one-off kind of photo shoot?
It's different. I wouldn't say it's better or worse. So when you are in that group of people and like, you're getting your pictures together and stuff, it's not as customized per se. So like in an individual shoot, we're going to multiple locations, like we're picking the destination just for you and your brand. You have your whole multiple wardrobes and hair and makeup, like it's just an entirely different experience. In a group setting, I'm more challenged to figure out how to bring out that person in the same exact setting as the next one. And I don't want to brag on myself, but I have that ability to do that. And so it's just a different experience, and it's a great stepping stone for somebody. Maybe they're not ready for the full branding one-on-one experience, and they need to start here. Or it's great for somebody who has already gone through that and they just need some refreshed images. They need to refresh their brand, like there's a fresh perspective on it, and they don't need to go through that whole process again.
I love what you said there about refreshing the brand. How often do brands get stale? Like if someone developed and put all this awesome work into building an epic brand with a brand strategist or a coach or whatever it might be, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, how likely is it that will need to be reinvigorated or changed or altered moving forward?
I found, it depends on the individual. So your brand is always evolving. It's never done. Like you never arrive, right? And so my rule of thumb is usually like it should last 2 years, but sometimes you go through like a big shift, and a year from now, like your brand is entirely different than what it was a year ago. Maybe you had a major life event and it's changed your perspective on things, or maybe you were like me, heavy into weddings, and then you're like one day like, I'm not booking weddings anymore. It could be any number of things, but generally I like to tell people, like the process that we go through should last you for at least a year or two, unless something major happens.
And do you help your clients understand like how to post the pictures, or when to post them, or where to post them, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things that's included with every shoot of mine, is follow-up coaching, because I've found that people really need that. They were getting photos back from other photographers and then not using them because they didn't know what to do with them, right? And so for sure, what I like to help people create is a social media like brand plan, and how are we going to use these to your advantage, So it's creating an Instagram layout, aesthetically, like here's what this could look like. And I'm not a graphic designer, but I can do some of that with my clients or hire out like graphic design for them to make it all come together. Or like with Facebook, it's just like, this would be a great cover photo.
Right.
And I work with a lot of web designers for my clients too. So, collaborating with them and kind of giving my opinion. When I shot this, I was thinking this would be perfect for her about page because I really tried to bring out this part of her personality in it. So whatever it may be, I definitely like to be part of that follow-up process to make sure they get the most use out of them.
So when you are taking the pictures and creating a brand, do you have a design for the different types of feelings and emotions you want to evoke in the different pictures, depending on like where it might go into the website? Like, do you plan that out before, or is it kind of in the moment? You just see what you draw out and then you kind of retrofit it after. How does that work?
Well, for my like full branding clients, I've spent a lot of time with them before the actual day of the photo shoot. So I know them pretty well. And honestly, my entire business has been built on referrals and relationships. Like I haven't even had a website myself for like 3 years. It is being built currently. So I've known my clients pretty well by the time they're in front of my camera. And going into it, it is an organic process. It's very intuitive for me. But I do have in the back of my mind, like what I definitely need. So I always get like a must-have shot list. Like if, what are the shots you absolutely have to have, for your designer, for yourself, whatever. And beyond that, it is evoking emotion from my clients, showing the different sides of them, they might think I'm trying to get them to do one thing, and it's really just so they laugh, so I can get that really good laughing shot. And they have no idea what I'm doing, right? Or it's, you know, taking them to a place in their mind, like, okay, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to think of this. Like, I want you to like really get centered, slowly open your eyes and look at the camera, and like, bam, there's that money shot, you know, for whatever emotion I'm going for. So it's a process of knowing how to interact with them, keeping in the back of my mind what I need. And it even comes down to, you know, like, I need a lot of shots with negative space on the left and negative space on the right, so they can put words on those shots after the photo shoot's over. So it's a combination of things.
That's cool. I love it. I love it. So it's a combination of organic and you as a experienced photographer and knower of, hey, this probably needs to go on your website or cover photo, whatever. You'll plan that out a little bit more effectively, intuitively flow into, hey, we should probably get one over here, over there, that kind of thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Cool. So is there any other mistakes people are making with their own profile pictures or branding that you see going on that's like a big no-no that they shouldn't do anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my pet peeves is, you know, the Eiffel Tower shots. Like having a photo in a glamorous location, like, or like in Paris in front of the Eiffel Tower, it's amazing. And I think that, you know, go for it. But that doesn't set you apart. Like that just makes you part of the crowd. Your brand photo shoot should be all about your uniqueness. And so make it unique. Don't, you know, that's one of the biggest things at the forefront of my mind. In fact, you know, locally even, for example, I've worked with 2 different financial advisors in my local area, and I want to work with more because it's great. I can brand them so differently. They're different target markets. Like, it's great that I can set them apart from each other and actually build their businesses better that way. So be unique, you know, don't just do what somebody else has done. Find a photographer who can pull that out of you, because you probably aren't going to know what that is. It should be their job to figure that out. And like, you're part of the process, definitely. But yeah, like find someone who can figure that out for you. And as far as like profile pictures, you know, I guess it depends on your page. Like if you're presenting yourself in a professional way, on like your business page, like don't put a selfie up, you know, that's kind of common sense.
Oh I've had guests send me selfies for the like the flyer and stuff. I'm like, come on, really? Yeah. It's like
no. Right. And like, you know, my current Facebook profile picture on my personal page is actually like a fun shot. It's not necessarily close up of me. Like, it's me in the water in San Diego. Like, it's professionally taken.
Right.
But I wanted that just to show my personality a little more. And like, when I see that picture, like it brings really good feelings and memories. And so that's why I have that up there. You see that and you get a good sense of who I am. And I feel like that's what your profile pictures should do, beyond a boring headshot. And again, nothing wrong with headshots. I just did a whole month of headshot specials for my local clients. You know, LinkedIn is great for those. You need them for some things. You need them if you're a realtor for your realtor's website. But, you know, when you're a personality brand, when you're trying to like do personality marketing and personal branding, show some personality and show some uniqueness in your photos. And don't filter your photographer's photos. No offense to my clients who've done that, but I love you all. But like, we're going for a certain look. So when you put a filter over that, it kind of ruins the look we were going for and then creates inconsistencies. I mean, they're your pictures, do what you want with them, but that's just my opinion.
I love it. I love it. So cool. So I'm totally going to put myself in the hot seat right now. On my profile picture, I have like writing underneath it. And my writing takes up like, I don't know, 2/3 of the picture or something like that. And then it's me like going like this. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I'm going to look at it.
But it's basically the statement of who I am standing for people, like what I'm a stand for and how I want everyone to feel around me. So it's like I'm creating that energy out into the world. I'm curious if you recommend branding on pictures or no branding or text or no text, depending on, I guess, like the result that the client wants, you know?
I'm totally okay with text on pictures.
Cool.
I think it can add an element that you can't get from the picture itself. And like, I'm looking at yours now. Now, you wouldn't be able to read that necessarily on like, I'm looking at it on my computer, so it might be hard to read on a cell phone.
It's like a lot of text.
But I mean, I personally like that. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer for that. I think it just depends on you.
Cool. Cool. I love it. Love it. Cool, cool, cool. So any other really big principles or branding do's or don'ts that you feel our audience should know about?
Well, I think, again, just going back to the goal of branding, when you think, branding originally, think about branding cattle, right? It's leaving your mark. What kind of mark do you want to leave on the world? And how are you different than everybody else doing what you're doing? And using those factors to set yourself apart and to create an amazing experience for people. And, that's the best way to build your brand. And the other thing I want to say is, I think, when do you need a brand? Because you don't necessarily need to brand yourself right away. Like if you're just getting started in business, and you're limited on funds, there's probably better areas you can put your money. Like before you get a logo, like I don't do graphic design work, but like you don't need a logo right away. Just pick a nice simple font and use that. You don't need to pick your colors right away, like, because you're not even going to know what they need to be. You just need to get out there and work with people right away. Start working on the experience that people have with you, and building word of mouth that way. And then, like, once you've worked with some people, then you're going to have a better idea of who you want to work with, how you best work with them, what really does set you apart. And that's when you want to start thinking about branding yourself.
That's powerful. That's powerful. So to recap, it sounds like learn how to generate cash first, build your business, go make sales, and in that survival stage of startup, like make sure you got your foundation covered, and you'll start getting that feedback from your audience, from your clients, from your customers of what works, what's important to them, what stands out about you, which then, Shannon, you're able to use as you're able to ask the questions to draw out the answers given the kind of random resources that have been produced based on the entrepreneur or business owner or whatever it is, their efforts up until this point. And then you're able to say, okay, since you have this, this, and this, let's put it together like this to create a story. So speaking of a story, we talked about vision earlier and creating clarity around the vision. How does the vision tie into story and being able to tell our stories through a brand? How does that transition happen? How does that connect?
I love that. Yeah. So actually that's one of the questions I ask my clients is, what is the story of your past and how does it affect who you are today? And so the reason I'm asking that is, again, I'm looking for those unique things that make them who they are, and how can we bring that out in their photos and in their brand? So maybe it's, maybe they had a special person in their life, like a grandfather, for example. Maybe there's a grandfather who was integral in the shaping of this person's life, and they like to go fishing every Sunday morning, and whatever it might be. Maybe we want to showcase that and have a backstory. This has shaped me into the man I am today, because I do work with men too. This has shaped me into the man I am today because, and that becomes a way of people connecting with you, and you become a real person to them. And it just becomes a way of I just lost what I was going to say. I'm so sorry.
It's all perfect. Comes away telling the story. This is the man I am because people get it.
Oh, and then we can draw that into your why. So usually the why of what you're doing has something to do with your past and how that has shaped you into who you are today.
Totally.
So
and people make that connection through story. It's so that's why he is so driven and does these ridiculous 12-hour marathons. Okay, now I get it.
Yeah, and it becomes, it's not a gimmick to people. I did a live stream this morning with Kathleen about this actually in her group. And, because part of the whole conscious branding movement that people are hesitant on is they're well, I don't want to be seen as using a charity, to drive business to myself. I don't want to be fake. I want to be careful with how I present that. Okay. And so in talking about your why and in bringing the story about why you care about this thing or why you do what you do, it creates a connection with people. And it makes that powerful, just the powerful human connection. That's just what it does.
Wow. That's awesome. So the story is really the foundation for getting people's buy-in to the brand. Do you find brands succeed without that story or going back to the how it all started, or is that an essential component for brand success? Like Apple, for example, does Apple have their story as a big part of their branding, or is it mainly the philosophy, or have people just come to understand who Apple is because of the history and how long they've been around?
That's a great question. I think with like someone big like Apple, you're gonna get people on all ends of the spectrum. Like some people like them for their design. Some people like them like they like the whole customer service. I know that's why I stick with Apple. Like I love their customer service. I will never buy something that's not Apple because they're amazing in that sense. You know, like I love the story of Steve Jobs. Like he's so freaking inspiring. Like for me, it's everything about it. So I think it really depends, but on like a solopreneur level, which is who we're really talking to and about, for me, in my opinion, I think story is essential. Again, let's face it, the coaching world is saturated. I mean, pretty much every world is saturated. Like photographers are a dime a dozen anymore, you know? Realtors, how many realtors do you know in your area? So if you have one realtor that has this really powerful story behind what they do and they share their past with you and you can relate to that on some level, you're like, they're just like me. They're like, they're a human being and I know why they're doing what they do. I see the passion behind what they do and I want to be a part of that. You're gonna automatically just be more drawn to that person or not. You know what? That's another part of branding is pushing away the people that you're not meant to serve. So that way you have the time and the capacity to serve those who are meant to work with you.
So I love that because we talked about pushing away the people who aren't meant to work with you. How do people who have this like kind of vanilla message and they still haven't found out how to like penetrate and maybe they are using their story, maybe they're not, you know, the background, the history, how do they penetrate that noise even more and reach their target audience? Got any suggestions for that?
Yeah, because I used to be that person. So before I got really clear on my niche, on my ideal bride, you know, like on what set me apart, I was just marketing to everybody. I was afraid, like when I first heard the concept of an ideal client, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I'm going to miss so many other people, you know? You just have to figure out, like, so I say, like, what I tell people is like, look back at your past clients and like, let's grade them. Like, who are your A clients, your A+ clients? You loved working with them. Let's figure out like, what do they have in common? And let's find more people like them. Your C, D, F clients, like if you've worked with people like that, we're going to create a message that they're not going to resonate with, so you don't have to worry about them anymore. But you can't, I mean, if you're vanilla, like you're going to be, you know, maybe your draw is going to be like low pricing, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not, maybe you're not trying to create a high end or high touch business. Maybe you're trying to be a commodity, and that's fine. And then that's a different conversation. But I think for anybody who
don't do it.
Don't do it. I think it's really important to have a very clear message, to not be afraid to be polarizing and not be polarizing just for the fact of being, you know, like that's a pet peeve of mine when people try to be controversial just to be controversial or like, you know, like dropping the F-bomb every other word. But like you can tell when it's like that's just who they are, and you can tell when they're just trying to create a show. That can be a turnoff. So like be real about it and just be polarizing, like set yourself apart so that way you stand out from the crowd.
I love it. I love it. So I do want to dive in real quick because I know you mentioned being in front of the camera has been a challenge for you up until this point. I do acknowledge you, Shannon, for your communication ability. You are exceptional at communicating, and I think there might be like some story about you're not like amazing at communicating and being in front of the camera and rocking it. You're amazing. Okay, so just get that. What's something else that you see yourself breaking through this year, 2018?
I've gone through a ton of personal transition in the past 6 months or so. It's actually been a pretty crazy year for me. So this upcoming year is all about impact for me. And you know how people pick a word of the year? Like I totally did that this year. And I thought my word this year was going to be abundance because it's something I just needed to believe in, that I struggle with, like believing that there's going to be enough and I'm not going to fail and I'm not going to like lose. Like it's just, I'm working with a mindset coach on all of this. And so I had that word picked out, and then actually Christmas Eve, I just felt it on, like it was like burned into my very being. The impact is my word this year. And so that is impact on a professional and a personal level. It's impact within the four walls of my home. It's impact within my community, and it's impact within the entire world. Like it's going to be big. And I've had several people just that didn't even know this, speak this over me. Like, this is going to be a really big year for you. And I feel kind of silly saying that. I'm not trying to like talk myself up in any way, but I know that this is a year of impact and of growth and of doing scary things that I never thought I could do. And I'm really freaking excited for what that's going to look like.
That's awesome. Impact. You are impact. And I love how you said impact, because most people would think about, okay, impact in my business. First thought, right? Of course, like I'm going to impact my clients' lives and help them reach more people and succeed like that. And the thing you said is impact within the four walls of my house. Like, where does impact show up? Impact shows up when I'm standing in line at Starbucks. Impact shows up when I'm driving my car. Impact shows up when I'm sitting on the plane about to go somewhere, right? Like, that's who you are everywhere. That's the focus. And I'm doing the same thing with nurturing, right? Nurturing is everywhere in my life. Nurturing my relationships, nurturing my dreams, nurturing my soul, nurturing my everything, plants in my backyard, right? Like, whatever it is, it's nurturing. It shows up everywhere. And that's like the real marker that you have really taken on impact. So I'm super excited to see how that shows up in your life, 2018. And we're excited to see what things you courageously take on and fears that you challenge and just show up in the face of and just rock it.
I'm excited.
Awesome. So, Shannon, we're beginning to wrap up, and we want to know, what are the final takeaways from this interview, and what's the new reality you want people stepping into because of their time they invested here with us?
I think the biggest thing I want people to walk away with is getting over that, who am I to do this? And just reframing that into, who am I not to do this? And then figuring out how to make that happen. Don't be afraid to leave your mark on the world. Don't be afraid to be visible. Literally, what's the worst that's going to happen anyways, right? Nothing. Like, maybe you feel stupid in front of your friends and family. Like, guess what? I block my friends and family on things I don't want them to see on Facebook. So that way I can fearlessly show up, and like, it's okay to do that, right? So don't be afraid. Like, get over the, who am I to do this? It's not about you. It's about others, and like, just reframe that. And then, as far as branding goes, don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to be controversial in a heart-centered, true way. Don't do what everybody else is doing. If you're going to have a brand photo shoot, make sure it's unique and different, and that you're working with somebody who knows how to pull that out and who is a brand photographer. Like, there's just don't be afraid to be different.
Beautiful. So, Shannon, how do people stay connected with you, and what do you want them to do next?
Yeah, well, Instagram is my jam. So I would love to connect with you on Instagram. My handle is, I have a behind the scenes account, which is like my kind of daily personal stuff. And that's Shannon Confair, BTS. If you want to see my work, you can go, Instagram.com/Shannon Confair. And I would love for people, we have 2 spots left for the San Diego retreat. So if you're, near California, or if you want to get a plane ticket in the next couple of days and head out, we would love for you to join us. And that website is KathleenVentura.com/ocean. And I'll pop that into the comments below this when we're done.
Awesome. And that is what dates again?
February 15th through 17th.
Cool.
I'll be there until the 20th. So if anybody is local, I definitely want to connect and meet new friends. And
yes, let's meet up. Sure. I love it. Awesome. Shannon, you're a superstar. Thank you for all that you do for these solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, people committed to sharing their story and having a brand that rocks and is unforgettable and is branded, burned into the minds of their people and their audience, so that they are forever empowered by that person, by the lessons, the wisdom that they teach, and who they stand for. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you for having me, Chris. This was really fun.
Absolutely. Best interview ever. Every interview. So, Shannon, have the best day ever. We love you, and we'll see you soon, okay?
All right. Bye.
See ya.